He signed the paperwork on a Friday. 30 years at the same company. Corner office by the end. The kind of career where people actually showed up to the goodbye party that night. He called his daughter. Told her the news. She was thrilled, laughing, asking questions, saying they needed to celebrate. It was a good call. One of those rare ones where everything feels right. Saturday morning, a text from his son-in-law. Hey, any chance you could watch the kids next week? Tuesday through Thursday. Now that you've got some time. He stared at it for a second. Didn't answer right away. Not because he was angry. Not because he didn't love his grandkids. It was something else. Something he hadn't expected to feel. Because he'd always thought of himself as someone who had no problem saying no. Direct guy. Clear communicator. Not a pushover. But this wasn't a coworker asking for a favor. This was his daughter's family. And somehow that changed the math entirely. I've watched this happen more times than I can count. Someone spends months, sometimes years, building a retirement plan. The income is mapped out. The savings are in order. They've done the work. And then, within 48 hours of telling people, the calendar starts filling up with things they never planned for. It's not that people are taking advantage of them. It's that the moment you say, I'm retired, everyone around you quietly recalibrates what's reasonable to ask. I used to think it was about having the right words. Better phrasing, cleaner scripts. Tried that. Didn't hold. The words aren't the problem. The missing piece isn't a script. It's something structural. And it has to be in place before you make that call. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 3 things that need to be locked in before you tell anyone. And the one conversation most couples never have that ends up costing them more than any market downturn. If you're within a few years of retirement, or if you're already there, stick around. And if this is the kind of content you want more of, hit subscribe. I cover this stuff every week, no fluff. Here's what actually happens the moment people find out. The moment people find out you're retired, something shifts. Nobody announces it. Nobody calls a meeting. But the people around you, family, friends, neighbors, they quietly update their mental model of who you are. And in that new model, you have something they don't. Time. I've seen this play out the same way over and over. A woman retires after a long career. She was a nurse for 28 years. 6 weeks in, her weekly calendar looks like this. Grandkids Monday and Wednesday, lunch with a friend Tuesday, neighbor needs a ride to a doctor's appointment Thursday. None of these people are bad. None of them are deliberately draining her. They're just doing what people do when they sense available capacity. She's busier than she was when she was working full-time. And here's what makes it tricky. She said yes to all of it. Not because she was forced to. Because in the moment, each request felt small, reasonable, one afternoon, one lunch, one favor. That's how it works, not one big ask, 100 small ones. And over time, the small ones add up to something real. I want to put a real number on this because most people underestimate it significantly. Fidelity's research on early retirement spending shows retirees consistently overshoot their planned budget by 15% to 20% in the first 2 years. And a significant portion of that isn't healthcare, isn't inflation, isn't market losses. It's unplanned social spending, meals, favors, picking up tabs, helping with things that weren't in the plan. Run that number for a second. If your monthly budget is $5,000, a 15% overage is $750 a month. That's $9,000 a year. Over the first 10 years, that's $90,000 gone. $90,000. Not from a market crash. From small asks that felt reasonable one at a time. And it compounds in a way that's easy to miss. When you spend more than planned, you pull more from your investment accounts earlier than expected. That matters a lot, because the first few years of retirement are when your portfolio is most vulnerable to early withdrawals. Pull too much too soon, and you're not just spending down savings. You're shrinking the base that was supposed to generate income for the next 30 years. This isn't about saying no to everyone. It's about being ready before the asks start. And ready doesn't mean having enough money. It means having a plan that can hold its shape when the people you love start pulling on it. The social pressure is real, but it's just the surface layer. Underneath, there are 3 specific things that need to be in place before you say a word to anyone. And most people skip all 3. Most people think they're ready to retire when they have enough saved. That's not the same thing. Having money and knowing exactly how that money works are 2 different situations. And the gap between them is where a lot of retirement plans quietly fall apart. When you're working, income is simple. It shows up on a schedule. Same source, same amount, roughly the same taxes. You don't have to think about where it comes from. The day you retire, that changes completely. Now you have multiple accounts. A 401k, maybe a taxable brokerage account, a Roth IRA, Social Security coming at some point, and suddenly you have to decide which one you pull from first. Most people default to whatever feels easiest. Usually that means the traditional IRA or 401k, because that's where most of the money is. That default costs them. Take someone like Tom, 63 years old, $800,000 saved, no debt. By most measures, he's in good shape. First month of retirement, he needs $6,000 to cover expenses. He pulls it from his traditional IRA. It's the obvious move. That's the big account. That's where the money lives. What nobody told Tom is that he just entered the most tax-efficient window of his entire retirement, and he's spending it pulling from the worst possible account. The years between retirement and when Social Security starts are often the lowest income years you'll ever have as a retiree. No salary. Social Security not yet running. If you manage it right, your taxable income is unusually low. That's the window to do small Roth conversions. Moving $15,000 or $20,000 a year from a traditional IRA into a Roth at a low tax rate before higher income years arrive. Most people don't realize they're in it until it's gone. Instead, Tom is pulling $60,000 a year straight from his traditional IRA. Every dollar is ordinary taxable income. His combined income climbs. And once combined income crosses $34,000 for a single filer, or $44,000 for a couple, up to 85% of Social Security benefits become taxable. He's not there yet, but he's moving toward it, one withdrawal at a time, without realizing it. Pull from the wrong account in the wrong year, and the cost doesn't show up right away. It shows up quietly over time. You don't just pay more taxes now. You shrink your flexibility for every year that follows. You foreclose options quietly. The income plan isn't just a spreadsheet. It's a sequencing decision. Which accounts go first? Which goes second? What fills the gap before guaranteed income kicks in? That order matters more than most people expect. And there's a practical side to this that doesn't get talked about enough. When you know exactly where your money is coming from, and you've thought through the first 5 years, you stop being rattled by questions. Family asks if you're okay financially. You answer from a settled place. Not defensive, not rehearsed, just clear. That's what a clear income plan actually gives you. Not just a number on paper, but a place to answer from. Most people think about retirement taxes the same way they thought about work taxes. Income comes in. Government takes a cut. Whatever's left is yours. That model doesn't hold in retirement. The rules are different, the interactions are more complicated, and 2 of the most expensive surprises come not from how much you earn, but from when you earn it and what account it comes from. The first one is Social Security taxation. Most people know their benefits might be taxed. Fewer understand how easily it happens. The IRS uses something called combined income to determine how much of your Social Security is taxable. It's your adjusted gross income, plus any tax-exempt interest, plus half your annual Social Security benefit. If that number crosses $34,000 for a single filer, or $44,000 for a couple, up to 85% of your benefits become taxable. Those thresholds have been frozen since 1984. They've never been adjusted for inflation. Meanwhile, Social Security's cost of living adjustment for 2026 is 2.8%, which means benefits went up, but the line in the sand didn't move. More retirees cross it every year without changing anything about how they live. That's not a conspiracy. It's just how the math drifts over time. The second one is less familiar and in some ways more disruptive. It's called IRMAA, the income-related monthly adjustment amount. It's a surcharge on your Medicare Part B and Part D premiums, and it kicks in based on your income from 2 years prior. That's not a typo. Your 2026 Medicare premiums are based on what you earned in 2024. A decision you make today shows up on your Medicare bill in 2026. And it's a cliff, not a slope. The standard Part B premium in 2026 is $202.90 a month per person. Cross the first income threshold, $109,000 for a single filer, $218,000 for a couple, and that jumps to $284.10. For two people, that's nearly $1,950 extra per year. $1 over the threshold moves you into the next tier entirely. I'll be honest. When I first really understood how IRMAA works, it stopped me. Not the dollar amount exactly, the structure. The idea that a perfectly reasonable financial decision made in 1 year could quietly show up as a higher bill 2 years later with no warning. That's the kind of mechanism you only learn once. And most people learn it the hard way. Here's how it plays out in practice. A couple, call them Robert and Susan, retires and decides to do a Roth conversion in their first year. Smart long-term move. They convert $80,000. Their income for that year hits $230,000. Good decision, reasonable execution. Then a year later, a letter arrives from Social Security. Their Medicare premiums for the following year are higher. Significantly higher. Because of income they reported 2 years ago. They didn't connect the dots until the bill was already set. The conversion itself was fine. What they missed was the timing and the 2-year lag they hadn't mapped. The fix isn't complicated, but it has to happen before retirement, not after. You model out your income for the first 5 years. You run 3 scenarios, a low-income year, a normal year, and a high-income year, like a large conversion or an asset sale. You check where each scenario lands relative to the Social Security thresholds and the IRMAA brackets. Then you make decisions with the full picture in front of you. Pulling from the wrong account in the wrong year, without that map, is how a good retirement plan absorbs costs it was never designed to carry. And that's before you factor in what happens when the people around you find out you're done working. You've mapped your income. You've stress tested your taxes. On paper, you're ready. And then you tell your spouse, not the world, just your spouse. And that night, she calls her mom. Her mom calls her sister. Her sister mentions it to her son. And by the next morning, your daughter has already texted asking if you could help cover $15,000 in student loans. Because she heard the news and figured now was a good time to ask. You had an income plan. You didn't have a spouse alignment plan. This is the part that doesn't show up in retirement checklists. The financial prep gets attention. The accounts, the taxes, the Social Security timing. What gets skipped is the conversation that determines how all of that holds up once other people know about it. Because the moment the news is out, the requests start. And how you and your partner respond, together, or separately, or caught off guard, shapes the first year of retirement more than almost anything else. There's a number that surprised me when I first saw it. According to AARP research, retirees in their first 3 years say yes to an average of $3,200 to $5,800 in unplanned financial assistance to family annually. That's not a judgment. Families help each other. But there's a difference between choosing to help and getting pulled into it before you've had a chance to think. The difference comes down to one thing: whether you and your partner had the conversation before anyone else was in the room. I'm not going to pretend this is easy. When someone you love asks for money, you're not running a financial calculation. You're navigating decades of relationship history, guilt, loyalty, and the particular discomfort of being the person who has to say not right now. Most couples don't prepare for that. Not because they've never thought about it, but because they've never had a map for what that conversation looks like. So here's a simple one. 3 questions. Work through them with your partner before you tell anyone else. First, who gets to know and who decides? The two of you should agree on a list and an order before either of you makes a single call. Not because the news needs to be controlled, because once it's out, it moves on its own. Second, what's your script for money requests? You need a response ready before you're sitting across from someone who needs help. Something that buys you time without committing or refusing. Something like, "We're on a fixed income now. Let us think about it and get back to you." That's it. No explanation required. No apology. Third, what does your ideal week actually look like, and what does your partner's? Not in theory. Specifically, which days do you want protected? What you're willing to say yes to, and what you're not. If you don't answer that before other people start filling in your calendar, other people will answer it for you. None of these questions take long to work through, but most couples never ask them because the retirement conversation tends to focus on money, and this one is really about everything else that money has to hold up against. 3 things. That's the whole list. Lock in your income plan, not just the total, but the sequence. Which accounts, in which order, across the first 5 years. Know where every dollar comes from before you tell anyone you're done working. Stress test your taxes. Run the scenarios before retirement, not after. Know where you stand relative to the Social Security thresholds and the IRMAA brackets. A decision made in the wrong year without that map can cost you quietly for a long time, and have the alignment conversation with your partner before the news gets out. Who finds out, when, in what order. What you say when someone asks for money. What your week is supposed to look like, and what theirs is. Do that together in advance, before anyone else has a chance to weigh in. None of this is about being guarded or pulling away from the people you care about. It's about being steady when the questions come, and they will come. From family, from friends, from yourself at 2 in the morning wondering if you made the right call. Saying no to someone you love is hard. I don't think that changes much with preparation. But there's a real difference between saying no from a place of clarity, where you and your partner already talked it through, already know where you stand, and saying no while you're still figuring out the answer yourself. The first one holds up. The second one tends to fall apart right when you need it most. I don't have a perfect script for every family situation. Every household is different, and some of these conversations are genuinely complicated. But the one thing I keep seeing across every version of this story is that the people who prepare the conversation before they need it are the ones who feel like retirement actually belongs to them. That's the goal, not a bigger number, but a retirement that actually feels like yours. If this was useful, subscribe and turn on notifications. New video every week. And if you know someone who's getting close to this decision, it's worth sending.